I'm here at St. Stephen's Catholic Church in Portland, Oregon, and today is the 6th day in our Novena in preparation for the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. Now, within this time period, we also have the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, so it's appropriate that we are considering Mary over these 3 days, over the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Later this week, we have the Holy Name of Mary, and then next Monday, we have the 7 Sorrows of the Blessed Virgin Mary, right after the feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. And so it's appropriate that we're considering Mary during these days. And you might be thinking, well, Father, what does that have to do with the Holy Cross? Well, the Holy Cross makes it possible for there to be a mystical body of Christ in which we become children, and the Blessed Virgin Mary is our mother. She's given to us from the cross. And then we have saints. We have saints. They're not just waiting down in Hades or Sheol for the coming of the Messiah. The gates of heaven have been opened. We have saints. And so it's appropriate that we're talking about these things as part of that mystery of the cross. And that really is the exaltation of the Holy Cross. We're not talking so much about the passion of the cross. That belongs to last spring. We're talking about the exaltation of the Holy Cross, and so the flourishing of the spiritual life. Today we continue with chapter 2 of the very Reverend Adolphe Tanquerey's book, The Spiritual Life, continuing chapter 2, The Nature of the Christian Life, and paragraph 170, entitled, The Act of Entire Consecration to Mary. Paragraph 170, Nature and Extent of this Act. This is an act of devotion, which in itself embodies all the others. As explained by Blessed Grignon de Montfort, St. Louis de Montfort, it consists in the entire gift of self to Jesus through Mary. It comprises 2 elements. First, an act of consecration, which is to be renewed from time to time, and then an habitual attitude by which we live and act in entire dependence on Mary. Quote, the act of consecration, says Blessed Grignon de Montfort, consists in giving oneself wholly to Mary and through her to Jesus as her slave. End of quote. Let no one be shocked at the word slave, which today seems so repugnant to us, but which has no such evil meaning as exclaimed by this servant of God. A mere servant, says he, receives his wages, is ever free to quit his master's service. He gives his labor only, and not his person, not his rights, not his goods. A slave, however, freely agrees to work without wages, and, trusting to the master that gives him food and shelter, hands himself over to him forever, with all that he is and has, in order to live in entire dependence on the master in the spirit of love. Paragraph 171. Carrying the application of the simile to things spiritual, the perfect servant of Mary gives himself over to her, and through her to Jesus, beginning with small letter a, his body. His body, with all its senses, he gives over to her and through her to Jesus. So his body with all its senses, keeping only the use thereof, and pledging himself not to employ them, except in accordance with the good pleasure of the Blessed Virgin or her Son. Moreover, he accepts beforehand the dispositions of divine providence, as regards sickness and health, life and death. Small letter b, he gives himself over to her and through her to Jesus all his worldly possessions, using them solely in dependence on Mary for her honor and the glory of God. Small letter c, his soul with all its faculties, dedicating them under Mary's guidance to the service of God and the good of souls, and renouncing at the same time whatever might compromise his sanctification or imperil his salvation. Small letter d, all his interior and spiritual treasures. his merits, the value of his satisfactory acts, as well as the impetratory power his good actions may possess. All these are placed in the hands of Mary, to the extent in which they can be given over to another. Now let us explain this last point. Number 1. Are merits properly so called, that is, de condigno, by which, you don't know what that word means, but just wait, because he's going to contrast merits de condigno from merits de congruo. Are merits properly so called, that is, de condigno, by which we procure for ourselves an increase of grace and glory, cannot be given away. When then we make a gift of them to Mary, it is not in order to apply them to others, but that she might hold them in trust for us and give them increase. Now it is quite otherwise with the merits called de congruo, which can be offered for others, and these we leave entirely to Mary's free disposition. Number 2, in the same manner, we allow her to dispose of and to apply freely the satisfactory value of our acts and the indulgences we may gain, since these can be given to others. So you gain an indulgence and you offer it for the holy souls, or you gain an indulgence for yourself. In this case, you would gain the indulgence and let Mary choose where it's going to go. All right. Number 3. In virtue of our consecration to Mary, we cede to her even the impetratory value of our acts, impetratory, that is to say, of our prayers and our good actions, insofar as they are endowed with such efficacy. Paragraph 172. Once we have made this act of consecration, we can no longer, without her permission, dispose of the goods we have made over to her. However, we may, and at times we should, beg her to favor, according to her good pleasure, those to whom we are bound by special ties, and to whom we are under special obligation. The best way, therefore, of harmonizing our gift of self to Mary and our duties to others is to offer up to her all those who are near and dear to us. I am all thine, and mine are thine. End of quote. Thus, the Blessed Virgin will draw on what we have given her, but more still on the treasury of her own merits and those of her Son, in order to help those we have committed to her care. Our friends, therefore, will lose nothing. Paragraph 173. Excellence of this act of consecration. It is an act of holy abandonment, of self-surrender, excellent in itself and containing, moreover, acts of the highest virtues, religion, humility, and confiding love. Yes, those are virtues. Religion is a virtue of, under justice, of giving to God what is owed to him. We owe him our religion. That's the virtue of religion. And also the virtue of humility and the virtue of confiding love. Number 1, it is an act of religion toward God, the Word made flesh, and Mary, the Mother of God. By it we acknowledge God's sovereign dominion and our own nothingness, and proclaim with heart and soul those rights over us which God has given Mary. Number 2, it is an act of humility, for by it we acknowledge our nothingness and our helplessness. We divest ourselves of everything that we've received from God and restore all to the giver through the hands of her from whom, under him, and through him, we have obtained every good gift. Number 3, it is an act of confiding love. For love consists in the gift of self, and to give oneself entirely and unreservedly presupposes absolute trust and living faith. It may be said that this consecration, if rightly made, and frequently and earnestly renewed, is even of greater worth than the heroic act by which we give up but the satisfactory value of our acts and the indulgences we may gain. Paragraph 174. Fruits of this act of consecration. They come from its very nature. First, By this act, we glorify God and Mary in an unparalleled manner. We give ourselves to God forever with all that we are and all that we have, without measure or stint. And we do so after the manner of divine wisdom, that is, returning to God in the very way He chose to come to us, and hence in the way that is most pleasing to Him. Paragraph 175. Secondly, we thereby also ensure our individual sanctification. Mary cannot but minister under the sanctification of those who, having disposed of their persons and goods in her behalf, are, so to say, her own property. She will most assuredly secure for us choice graces to safeguard our little spiritual treasure, to make it grow, and have it bring forth fruit in season until the hour of death. She will help us through her superabundant merits and satisfactions, and through her powerful intercession with God. Thirdly, a third fruit of this consecration to Mary is the sanctification of our neighbor. This is true especially of the souls entrusted to us. They are certain to gain by our gift. We can be sure that when we leave the apportioning of our merits to Mary's good pleasure, everything will be done with greater wisdom. She is by far more prudent than we are, more thoughtful, and more devoted. Consequently, our friends and relatives can only be the gainers. Paragraph 176. It may be objected that by such an act we alienate all our spiritual goods, above all our satisfactions and the indulgences and prayers that would be offered up for us, thus rendering our purgatory all the longer. Now, in itself, this is true. However, it resolves itself into a question of trust. Do we rely more on Mary than on ourselves or our friends? If we do, let us have no misgivings, for she will care for our souls and further our interests far better than we could ever do ourselves. If we do not, then let us refrain from making this act of complete consecration, for we might regret it before long. In any event, one should not make this act of consecration without reflection and advice. And we will finish up there for today, because tomorrow we go into the share of the saints in the Christian life. Now it is time to call to mind our intentions and pray our Novena prayer. You can click on a link in the description below the video. I think you know this by now. It's the 6th day of the Novena. I think you know that you can click on a link in the description below the video to print out the Novena prayer if you've not yet done so. Print it out double-sided with a short-sided binding and fold it in half so you have something that resembles a little booklet. And then, if you like, you can pray along with me and sing the hymn along with me, or learn the melody of the hymn by clicking on another link in the description below this video for the video of the daily Novena prayers. And then, if you want to find out more about St. Michael's Lent, of which we are considering this a part under the greater umbrella of St. Michael's Lent, you can click on another link for the playlist there of St. Michael's Lent. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you for sending me your intentions. I'm reading them. I had a really busy weekend, so I have not been able to respond. But I will. I'm keeping your intentions in mind, and I will at some point respond to your comments. So in the meantime, let's keep praying. Let's keep learning more about the spiritual life and entrusting ourselves to Jesus through Mary. And join me tomorrow for the 7th day in our Novena, and don't miss a day of prayer with us.